Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, Steve. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. We are going to talk about the situation in San Francisco and whether or not we're seeing a real estate doom loop starting to manifest. And this is kind of the idea that as revenues from the losses in real estate hit, that you have to have cuts in city services, and that those cuts then lead to further people leaving the city, and then further cuts, and just kind of a negative feedback loop. But we're going to go over some of the information around that, some of the hard data. Yes. Last year, San Francisco did project a 720 million two-year deficit, largely due to those revenue declines around commercial real estate. And they're projecting a 200 million shortfall for the 23-24 fiscal year, about half a billion the following year, and then that ballooning to then about 750 million in 25-26, and then about 1.2 billion in 27-28. And that's all assuming no recessions, that the economy kind of does well. Um, and we are seeing the city using last year about 166 million in reserve funds to close the budget shortfall. And their stabilization reserves have dropped about 312 million from where they previously were at 840 million. And in terms of real estate related revenues, we've seen them only get about 186 million in transfer tax revenues. That's more than 100 million lower than what they projected. And we're seeing property taxes um, going down also. And we saw them currently projected to refund around 167 million in property taxes as we look at assessments with lower property values. So that's kind of a mouthful. But we're definitely seeing them still having some pretty solid reserves. But we're still seeing them now spend more money than they have. Your thoughts on their financial situation and prospects?
Well, first off, this should be no surprise to anyone. This has been in the works for quite a long time, and it's partially government caused. Um, when business taxes increase beyond what's acceptable to a business, businesses move out. When businesses move out, jobs move out. When jobs move out, uh, yeah, tall buildings are vacant or show an increase in vacancy, and domestic real estate shows an increase in vacancy. Thus, a decline in taxes all the way around. So this has been coming for quite a long time. I don't know if it began when Newsom was mayor or not, but the same thing, oddly enough, seems to be happening in the state where he is governor. So anyway, to me, this is no surprise. All of the vectors are moving in the same direction. And then you add to that, the effect of COVID and the continued work at home rather than being brought back to the office. And in some states like California, employers seem reluctant to demand that employees come back to the office. It's infringing on employees' personal rights or something. Unlike other places like in the South, where employers are demanding, in some cases, that workers return to the home office or the work office. So, at any rate, my summary is I'm not surprised. No one should be surprised. And it's going to get worse because nothing is in place to make it improve. I mean, there's more homeless on the streets, and they're using the streets as their personal laboratory.
Yeah, I think that the kind of two-sided sword here is those large reserves um, do allow them to kind of push off, really going into a doom loop where they have to cut city services. They could be looking at potentially in the future access to debt markets. They've still got some cards to play before they're really cutting city services. the financial reserves, the potential maybe to go to debt market, as much as those are a positive, they're also a negative in that they're allowing them to keep going down this path that's gotten them these problems without making hard
Yep.
decisions. They're still postponing, cuts to maybe some spending that doesn't make sense. But more importantly, I think, and we've talked about this, what really makes San Francisco unique is kind of the self-inflicted public policy wounds around quality of life, and a lot of that goes to crime and property crime, which is was just really kind of out of control there. And you're still not really seeing anything to kind of shift that. So we're still seeing the situation where maybe conventions don't want to be there because they don't want to deal with it. Tourists, we could see that kind of take more of a hit, I think, if you continue to see. I mean, I saw a story just the other day about some visiting tourists went to the beach, left their car alone for 5 minutes, and it was broken into and everything they had stolen.
Sure.
And that's just, I mean, you just expect it. I mean, some of the residents are just leaving their windows down and doors open, basically. So they avoid having their the thieves break the glass. It's just kind of expected in San Francisco. Uh, and I think you've got to at some point address those things and the reserves they have and maybe some of the other accesses they have to money allows them to do what they've done and not change anything. Um, and I think that's kind of one of your
It's a
problems
false
here
hope.
is yeah,
Just a false hope.
yeah. So we're not going to really see the worst until they do run down those reserves. And they do get to the point where they can't tap the debt markets. So they've got time to fix things, but they don't really seem willing or interested in fixing things yet. So I kind of think that we really haven't seen a real doom loop emerge here yet because they haven't gotten to the point of having to really cut city services. But they seem hell bent on going down that path, and hopefully they'll reverse. But things definitely could get worse if they don't change.
Here, here. That's you nailed it.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on this. I'm sure there'll be more stories to tell since San Francisco does kind of remain kind of a uniquely difficult story in commercial real estate. No other city is really having the same declines SF has. So we don't want people thinking that we're talking about the entire office or the entire retail or the entire hospitality market. San Francisco really has some unique challenges that really seem to go to government mismanagement, to be blunt.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. We'll be following up on this.
All right. Good work, Steve. Thank you.